This is Moment Tonight. Welcome. Many thanks for joining us. We bring you the real stories.
Ghjana, have you put pepper in the tea?
My environment alone will tell you that I'm rich.
I've chosen to be in one of the very shallow pits. They also do have miscreants, but it doesn't mean that all of them are criminals.
We do not have a good geo database of our mineral resources.
This is a time for us to share the oil money.
So terrorism is not going to be accepted on this continent.
If they see them coming here and going back there, they'll be killed.
But God willing, I'll be back alive.
We're just about leaving on the night patrol with the AU forces here in Somalia.
The real issues, the real talk.
We are working together for the development of Ghana.
It means that we have separation of powers.
Already we're talking about moving from what? A deficit of some 9% to 6.5%.
The critical challenge that faces every leader in the world today is the issue of creating jobs.
We will put at least 1 million people to work.
Ghana, after 60 years, has a public structure that is not responsive.
Mr. President, I know this is your main issue why you came here.
Join me, Abdul MOOMEN. Hello, many thanks for joining us here on GBC News. My name is Abdul MOOMEN. This is Moment Tonight. Tonight, we take a look at many things because we are engaging in a conversation with a woman who has so many sides. She's got the political side, the corporate side, as well as the social side. She's a female, and of course that also means that we'll be talking a little about all the issues that have come up in connection with feminism, especially following the president's encounter in Canada, where we know of all the other news that followed that conversation. She is Nana Yaa Jantuah. Nana Yaa Jantuah used to be the Public Affairs Director at the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission until 2017, when she left under some controversial circumstances. We'll spend some time touching on the PURC just a little bit as well, and then we will talk, of course, about tariffs and the regime that we are currently in, what she makes of that tariff regime. We'll spend some time, of course, again, like I said, also talking about what life is like for women at the very height of their career in the corporate world, as well as in other sectors. Nana Yaa, thank you very much for accepting to speak with us here. It's been a while. When was the last time you engaged in any media encounter?
I think about 2 years ago.
About about 2 years now. You have
16 years. Yeah, I've been resting, spending time with my family.
You must have been very bored because you were one of the very, very familiar faces and voices in the media. How's life like with you right now without the media attention?
I'm not bored at all. I mean, I have time to spend with my son, whom I neglected for a very long time because of my job. I also have time to do a lot of work in the church. I mean, going to church, doing projects like right now we are doing the Magdalene Project. The Magdalene Project is a project that a Calvary Baptist Church in Shiashi, myself and other women like Mrs. Ajo Adams, we are putting women together to pray every quarter. And we got the Magdalene Project from the concept of the Monday, Thursday, where Mary Magdalene was the first woman to go and look for Jesus. So we are using that concept to move forward. And every quarter we gather women to pray. And we are not now concentrating on only Calvary Baptist Church, but we are going forward to other churches, into the Christian community, to make sure that women pray, because when women pray, things happen.
And you know, when I we arranged that we'll be speaking to you tonight. We put it out there on social media, and the first person to get in touch with me, I ask people whatever questions you want me to ask Nana Yaa Jantuah, feel free. Tell me, I'll ask her on your behalf. The first person, and I promised that I was going to ask that question. That's why I want to do that now before I forget. He says, can you ask Nana Yaa, now that she doesn't work with the PURC, how does it feel like to pay electricity bills?
I always paid electricity bills. I always paid electricity bills. I mean, I always paid. Even as a staff of the PURC, yes, you didn't have any, if you like, call it privilege? No, I paid my electricity bill as the tariff dictated. I paid my electricity bill as I consumed. I also had issues like every consumer. I had issues with my meter, I had issues with my bills that I reported to our consumer services division at the time with the utilities. I was like any ordinary consumer. So you were also affected by the increases at the time, but you were so vehemently defending increments at the time. Because it was my job, and because the fact that where I sat, we saw and I knew that this is what it was. It did not mean that I was happy because I was also paying the same tariff. But also you have to remember that I was working for an institution and I was mandated by that institution to defend whatever that institution put across. It wasn't me. Maybe there was a misconception about who did the tariff. The tariff was done by the board, and the board had the chairman, and the PURC had the secretariat, and I was the director for PR for the secretariat. And my job as a PR person, as a spokesperson, was to defend the tariffs. There were times that, now I can talk about it, that I really fought. And especially in load shedding where tariffs were increased, there were times that I really fought and said, can we do something about this? Can we go down a bit? Can we do this? Okay, so this is what I want us to do. We'll get to the issue of tariffs first. Yeah. I just brought this question up because I promised the viewer that would be the first question I will ask you, because he was the first person to... I've always paid. So you have always paid? I've always paid. And you didn't have any subsidies? No. You paid what I would pay, what everybody else paid? Yes, of course, because they cannot single me out. It's a system, it's a tariff structure, and you pay within the structure in which you fall. And I fell within the 300 unit structure, and within that 300 unit structure there was no subsidy. Subsidies were between the 0 to 50, 51 to 150 tariff structure, and if I used to fall in that structure, certainly then I will enjoy an automatic subsidy. But within my own structure of 300 and above up to 601, there was no subsidy, so I didn't enjoy any subsidy. I didn't have any privileges. I paid my bills as any citizen of Ghana, as any consumer of electricity and water. Okay, so Eric Asari, that's the name of the viewer who sent that question. I'm sure you have had your answer. Second question, from another viewer, someone who is watching right now. Did you leave the PURC at the time because you felt victimized, because you felt unfairly treated, probably because you were a woman? Not at all. At the time I left was the time that I had to leave, because I had resigned even in June 2016, because I thought it was time for me to move on. I have worked in public service for almost 27 years. A greater part of my life had been in the public service, serving the public. And I thought it was time for me to move on into other ventures, especially spending time with my God, spending time with my family. I became born again at a very young age, but because of my job, I didn't really have the time to do what I have to do with God. And for me, I take God and Jesus Christ very seriously. So I thought that it was time. 27 years in public service was enough. I started very young. Immediately after the School of Journalism, I got a job. And I've been going through the public service for almost 27 years. You got a job at GBC? Yes, I had a job at GBC. I worked left that out. I worked at GBC as a young girl. I think it was about the first place. I read journalism. I read journalism at the Institute of Journalism. I remember when I finished 6th form and I had admission to go to Tech. And I said, no, I'm going to do journalism. My daddy said that, no way. You're not going to do journalism. You are going to die as a pauper, because journalism is for poor people. And he had a really big fight with me. I even heard that when I was in school, he came to see Mr. Kojo Yanka, Honorable Kojo Yanka, that he was a rector at the time. He should not admit me. And my daddy was dead against it. But I had this conviction that that is where I had to be. And for me, with a lot of elation and happiness in my heart, in 2015, my daddy called me one morning. I thought he wasn't well. But all he told me was, I'm very proud of you. At that time, I didn't understand what you were doing. And you do it very well. I mean, coming from my daddy, I was very happy.
But I'm sad. Your daddy thinks we are poor people.
Yes.
We probably are not the richest, but
He mentioned names. He actually mentioned names. I don't want to mention the names, but he actually mentioned names of his friends who were broke, who were journalists at the time. And he didn't think that I should use my intellect and my resources to do journalism. I loved it. I wanted to.
Your daddy is the famous F.A. Jantuah.
Yes.
F.A. Jantuah goes back to the early days of the CPP.
Yes, Kwame Nkrumah.
He was part of the formation of the CPP, actually.
Yes.
F.A. Jantuah. And today,
the struggle for Ghana.
Yeah, as we speak, the CPP has celebrated 70 years.
Great.
How's your daddy doing?
My daddy is doing fine. He's old. I mean, certainly he has a few issues that goes with old age, but he's fine. I mean, he's the only surviving member of the cabinet of Kwame Nkrumah. And he loves Kwame Nkrumah. The only time you activate his memory is when you talk about Osajifo. And he'll start telling you about the Kulungulungu bomb. He'll start telling you about all the things they did together. And he started telling you about how Osajifo was a very wonderful person and how Osajifo had an indelible legacy for the CPP to carry on. And that he's sad to see the CPP in the way it is today, because Osajifo is a great man with a very indelible legacy that the CPP should rebrand on and move forward to become a formidable political force in the country. Okay,
on the question of you leaving the PURC, the lady is Elizabeth Brima, and that message she sent from Tamale. So I've asked your question for you also. So now I can proceed to do my show. So Nana, tell me, we've just spoken about your daddy, F.A. Jantuah, who was part of the political, is still part of the political history of this country. Having been a daughter of such a politician, and I know that some of your siblings are also into politics.
Yes, that's my brother Kwame.
Yes, but tell me, when you have conversations with your daddy and you yourself having experienced, probably from a third person's point of view, the political scene in the country, recently there have been conversations about women and their participation, women not being dynamic enough. Dynamism has become a word that is all over the social media these days and so on. Have women been dynamic enough from your point of view?
It depends on the perspective that you are talking from. I believe you are referring to what the president said in relation to activism.
I would have come specifically to the president, but
no, I mean, dynamism, yes. Women have been very dynamic. We are the wheel that runs the home. We are the wheel that does so many things. The Bible even calls us the helpmates to the man. We are the wheel that grinds. Even in our traditional setting, whenever there is an issue that becomes knotty and they cannot untie it, they said that let's go and talk to Abriwa. Abriwa meaning the queen mother in the house, the old lady in the house, and it's women have a lot of wisdom. Of course, there has been a lot of dynamism of women going forward in the church, in corporate, this thing. But what we need to look at specifically for me is the systemic stereotypes. The systemic stereotypes is what maybe we have to look at. That what is preventing women to go forward beyond where they have to go to. And that is what we have to look at. That sometimes people rear their head and some statements, some comment here and there would make them pull back, or somebody else sitting by the side would say that I wouldn't want to go into this. But women are very dynamic. They run the homes. I mean, women know whatever is going on. The man will ask you, where is my socks? Meanwhile, he wore the socks 24 hours ago. My dear, where is my shoe? Where is this? Where is that? So women are very dynamic. In the corporate world, women put things together.
So I do not mean to let this conversation be one about men against women, but in order to get the conversation in proper perspective,
okay.
When women talk about obstacles in their way, men can also point to several other obstacles in their way as well. And probably if we are counting 10 for women, we count about 11 or 12 for men. You just talked about women being dynamic enough. The man will ask a woman, where is my socks, and so forth. When there's a knock on the door at midnight, the woman will naturally not wake up to open the door. The man will be asked to go and find out what's happening there. That is comparable to saying, where is my socks? Who is at the door?
Yes, of course. I always say that everybody has a role. And as a Christian, I use the Bible as my guiding principle. I will never be like the man, and the man can never be like me. Because you see, or like any woman, God created us separately. God created us differently. God created us at different times. Mm-hmm. God put the man over everything, dominion over everything, and brought in the woman to be a helpmate. I don't know, I didn't think that this will come up, but yesterday I was actually reading Genesis, and I took my Bible commentary to find out the role of the woman as a helpmeet. Even my Bible said helpmeet. Do you get me? So I wanted to find out, and it said companionship, help, showing the way. These were some of the definitions that the helpmeets came up with. So we help the men. Our dynamism is to support the men. I always say that we can never be the same, because you see, if I want to get pregnant right now, I cannot get pregnant on my own. God said we should go into the world and replenish the earth. You cannot do it on your own. The man too cannot make babies on their own. So our role is complementary. I have a son. If I want to lift up a bag, my son does it so easily. I cannot. My son is only 24 years, but I don't have the strength that he has. So certainly we are two different people. We have different roles, but we are also there to help each other. I do not believe where we think that the men are somewhere and we are somewhere. We are helpmates. We are together. We are created from the rib of the man, and we have to work together to achieve our goals. We cannot do it separately.
So you are a woman who rose to the very height of your career. You became Director of Public Affairs at a very busy organization, and in fact you became the face of the organization at the time. We are told that women have a lot of obstacles in their way, but you made it to the very top. You have a family. You just told us about your son.
Yeah.
You made it.
Yes.
So why do we complain?
I don't think women are complaining. Women are not complaining at all. But you see, women, we have a way of taking in and making sure that we solve problems. So whatever obstacles that come our way, we find a way to solve the problem instead of complaining about. I don't think women complain, because we do so many things at the same time. Our hands carry the children, carry the corporate world, carry the family, carry everybody along. But we do not complain. We always make sure that we are in the center of everything, making sure that things are done. So we compartmentalize our life, do it effectively with the help of the men, so that we can be successful. I don't think women complain. We don't. But we are talking about the systemic stereotypes that are there in the system that prevent us to move on. Like, for instance, you rear your head, and like, I'm not talking about anybody else. Let me talk about myself. You rear your head, you get to the top of your career, and somebody says you're arrogant. Somebody who's never met you.
Just because you're a woman?
Yes, who's never met you.
Haven't you met any man who would also tell you that I also reared my head and somebody told me that I was arrogant?
It's not very common. Because the same thing that you do with the man, the same work that you do with the man wouldn't have any issues. But the women, you have names like Margaret Thatcher, Obadin Ding. I mean, you have certain Nana Yaa Jantuah. Do you get
okay,
me?
so we also have Obabema, man, woman.
Yes, Obabema is a woman who behaves like a man.
No, Okay, how about on the flip side? We have men who are described as women.
That
if they are perceived
to be weakling or something like that.
Okay.
That is, I mean, people describe it, but it is not very common. You don't hear people say, but you hear a lot of people say, "I'll buy away the awarding." Hey, you know this woman? This woman is difficult. Do you get me? Because you want to do the right thing, because you are out there in a position of authority, or you are out there in a position of responsibility, that you want to ensure that everything is all right. But at the end of the day, all I would say is that women and men, we are together. I mean, we are not different. If we are talking about women empowerment, I do believe in the fact that women should be made to work, learn a trade, go to school. The system should make it good enough for women to train themselves. That is where you empower yourself. If, for instance, you're a woman and you're educated, you can teach your children at home. You can train them at home.
Nana Yaa, so
yes.
Traditionally, women have always worked.
Yes.
In Ghana.
Yes. Even on the farms, in
exactly.
our homes, the women are the ones who are on the farms,
yes,
doing all the work. I mean, we have the shops. I grew up in Kumasi. In KJT, my mother had a shop in Kumasi, the Central Market. Even as a young girl, I'll finish school and go to the market and sell and all that. So women have been working.
So when women now say, or feminists now say,
they are not saying
let me just make a
they are not saying anything. They are just
I am asking the questions from the point of view of the devil's advocate. I do not share some of the things that I'm saying myself.
Okay.
But I need to raise the issue. That's just to get this clarification out there before people think I'm anti-feminism.
No.
But really, questions have been asked, Nana Yaa. So when women say that we must be allowed to work, women have always been allowed to work.
No,
nobody has ever stopped women from working.
You see,
let me finish, Nana Yaa, if you excuse. Okay. Now we talk about education, because you combine the two, work and education.
Yeah.
There is a law that says free, compulsory, universal, basic education. So very few families would you go to and find out that only the boys have been sent to school, because now it is illegal to leave any child, whether boy or girl, at home. There was a period of time when we had a campaign, girl child education.
Yeah.
That's so much so that at a point there was even a fear that the boy child may be neglected. Women have been given all the opportunities.
Okay, good. Women have been given opportunities, of course, and I do agree with that. But what then happens when after school the girl is asked to go to the kitchen to wash plates and clean, and the boy is doing his homework in very traditional settings? Maybe in the cities they are given equal opportunity, but even that, after homework is done between boy and girl, the girl is asked to come and put the plate on the table, while the boy might be watching Super Sport or something, or watching TV, or watching Time with MOOMEN. So we work, we are educated, but at the end of the day, the time that is allotted to us to be able to move on, to be able to the word is not coming, but to be able to be free, it is not enough. And these are some of the systemic stereotypes. Because then your mother will tell you that if you don't learn how to cook, you will not get a husband. Your mother will not tell the son that if you can't cook, you won't get a wife. Do you get me? So even after school, you are expected to even go to the market. The boy will
be told that if you don't get a career, no woman will marry you.
But
let's not forget that.
But certainly the man, if right now you are very current, the helpmate is working, because women are working and women are real helpmates. Because sometimes then you realize that the woman is contributing equally as the man is doing. So now you have helpmates, you have us. We are your mothers, we are your wives, we are your daughters. And we are making sure that the home is running. The helpmate that God said, we are putting it into practice. So even if your mother tells you that if you don't have a career, you won't get a wife to marry, it is not working as they wanted it to work. But in our case, they are telling us that if you don't cook, if you don't know how to cook, if you don't know how to clean the house, you might not get a husband.
Are you a feminist?
I don't know unless you define it for me, what is a feminist?
I have no idea either.
I am a woman. I am a woman who believes in women. I am a woman who believes that men and women are together to make things work. I am a woman who does not believe that the man hates the woman. I have sons, I have a brother, I love my brother. And you see, brothers and sons, they are very soft-hearted. Men are very soft-hearted. It depends on how you treat them. It depends on how you make them feel. Men want to be loved. And maybe that is what the women we are not seeing. Men are not people who are difficult at all. And we are partners. You should always make the man feel that we are partners. Look, I have a son, and my son is my barometer. When my son enters the house and I'm in a very moody situation, he will come and say, "Oh, mommy, why? You see, I don't like this that you are doing." I have nieces. When my nieces see me in that situation, they will all ask, "Auntie, what is wrong with you?" But my son and my nephew, my nephew Amachi will come and hug you. My son will come to me. All of them, they will come. My nephews will come. That's, "Auntie, what is wrong with you? Oh, mommy, auntie, don't do this. Why are you moody?" And at that moment, anything I want my son, "Mommy, should I bring you food? Have you eaten today?" Do you get me? So men are very nice people. And it is time we realize that men are not very difficult people. Men are not people who hate us. They don't.
Have you been monitoring activities of persons who purport to be advocating for women's rights? We've seen a number of groups, the most popular of them, and I'm not saying we should discuss the Pepper Dem Ministries.
Which one? I don't know them.
Okay, so there are so many groups that purport to be fighting for women's rights, activism.
They activating the system for women to survive.
What do you make of their strategies, if you have followed any?
No, I haven't really followed any.
Okay, so I've spoken to a few men and a few women as well, and the men go like, "Well, the issues are real, but the approach is bad." And females go like, "You can't tell us how to go about our activism."
I think the men should be able to tell us, because you see, if what we are doing is not changing the status quo, if what we are doing is not bringing a change, and we are still struggling to make the men listen to us, then I believe that it is time we listen to the men and said, how do we do it? Do you get me? How do we go about it? Because it is something that we have to do in tandem. We cannot do it alone. We are activating the system to ensure that things happen on our behalf. And whether we like it or not, in activating the system with a view to bring out a change, we have the men at the helm of affairs, and we need them to help us to activate. And if they are at the helm of affairs and they are telling us that we do not think that this is exactly how it should go, I don't think we should be upset. I mean, anybody can correct you. It's only God who cannot be corrected. Anybody with a bird's eye view of what is going on can tell you that, my dear or my brother, I think if you did it this way, it will catch our attention, it will catch the attention of the public, it will catch the attention of your constituents.
Soon I'll ask you what you make of events in Canada when the president visited the issues he raised. But before then, you spoke about impediments, obstacles in the way of women as they aspire to get to the very top. You gave an example of when you rear your head, somebody says you are arrogant, and so many others. But tell me, you as a person, how did you repel those negativities?
I made sure that I was focused, and I had God on my side. I would say today that as a Christian, the tool that Jesus Christ left to me when he was leaving, he said that I will bring the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will empower you. Whenever I'm in a difficult situation, I call the Holy Spirit to guide me. And I also made sure that I eschewed bitterness. I made sure that I'm not bitter about anything. I'm not angry about anything. If anybody said anything about me that was negative, I didn't take it as, I took it as a person's point of view. And it made me survive. If somebody said I wasn't good enough, I took it in my stride and found out from the person, why do you think I'm not good enough? How do you think I should do it? Like somebody told me, you use your left hand too much when you are talking on TV, and it means that you are disrespectful. And I said, I'm sorry, because I started as a southpaw, and as I was in school, my teachers made sure that I write with my right hand. I write only with my right hand. The strength of my whole being lies in my left. So I am sorry. So I made an effort to change it, even though I'm struggling. I made an effort to change it. I mean, people will tell you, if you had dressed this way, would have been better. If you had said this thing, and I take it in my stride. I don't think that anybody hates me. If there is a position I have to get and I'm not getting, I take it that it is not God's time. Because you see, if you're a Christian, there is nothing that is late. I have come to realize in my life that God has his own way of leading you to do whatever you have to do.
Women in corporate world complain that a natural process like birth, when you go, detracts women.
Yeah.
By the time they return from, is it real?
Yeah, it is real.
There's maternity leave.
Yes, maternity leave. Sometimes you come back and maybe somebody is in your position, or you are far back, because it's almost a year. You do your 10 months. I mean, pregnancy itself is a lot of work. Then you do your 6 months closing at 3 o'clock, and you do your you close at a certain time, and your child will get sick. I mean, naturally, we should all understand that it will happen. I mean, once you are not there, the corporate world is not waiting for you.
Right.
That one, I understood it from the very beginning. But you have to speed up, that within the time that's allotted to you, you have to make sure that you do as much as possible, maximize the time for the institution. You should also put in place certain mechanisms to ensure that you are not so many times out of the office, whereby maybe even if the child is sick, your husband can take the child to the hospital, your mother. If you don't have anybody at all, you minimize the process of being too absent. But even if you have to be absent, you make sure that the time that you have, you are productive and you are relevant, so that your absence is not felt too much.
In today's world, where we have so much technology that abounds, CCTV cameras everywhere, are females who are in the corporate world still sexually molested and abused by their male counterparts, sometimes their male superiors? Is that a reality? I
cannot talk to that. I hear it. Cannot speak to that. I worked for 27 years in corporate Ghana. I served Ghana 27 years. I was never molested by any man. I'd rather say that the men gave me a lot of support. The men showed me the way. They showed me the ropes. They took me under their wing. I was with them. They showed me everything that I have to do. I was the wind beneath their wings, and I can't.
You speak to several young women, and they will tell you that this is real. It's a matter of fact. What did you do differently, you believe, that it was that perhaps repelled such men?
I didn't let any man feel that I am desperate, looking for a job or looking for anything, because my daddy put a lot of confidence in me. I remember I was beaten by one of my classmates in nursery school, and my nursery school was very close to my home, and I ran home crying. And my daddy looked at me and said, "Hey, you're a woman, and this world is going to be harsh. You are not coming to run to me. I'm not going to live forever. Go back and beat the boy and come back and tell me the strategy you used to beat the boy." And he told me that you should be strong. And I was strong from the very beginning, because my home was a hub of political activity. And in the middle of that political activity, I was in there, because I had all these people who came to my father's house, the current president, Pawili, Gbedema, all the CPP people. They came during the PMFJ days, and I was the little girl who had to carry their seditious material during the 78, 77 Champon Union government. They were against the PMFJ, and I had a very arduous task of making sure that these people are not arrested, and that was my job. And I kept their seditious material with me. So all my life, I made sure that I don't let the man feel that I am vulnerable. I am not begging the man. I am asking you that if you can offer help. And I am not afraid of hardship. If I don't have a job, I don't have a job. And in the middle of it, I have God. And I wouldn't want to be vulnerable to any man. I wouldn't want to be vulnerable and the man would think that, oh, this is it and I have to take an advantage. It depends on how you treat them. If you let them feel you are vulnerable, you need them, you want them to do things for you for free. But you need to stand on your feet, even if it is difficult. Let the man know. And I also use education. I made sure that I went to school. I made sure that I learned. I made sure that I am up there. So if I'm speaking to you as a man, so most people said I am a man, I'm not a woman. Because I'll speak to you with your own intellect. Then you see me as a companion and a comrade. You wouldn't see me as somebody who you can just trample on.
That's the other question I wanted to ask you, because in the typical traditional African setting, the woman is supposed to be subservient to the man and speak to the man with some reverence. But you were director of a whole unit, which means that you had men working under you.
Yes.
When you had to issue instructions, did you have to be cautious?
No.
Or did you have to just go about doing your job?
It depends on the situation. If I give you a work, then I need to report to my board and you are delaying me, certainly I'm not going to have it easy with you. But beyond that, I mean, we were friends. And I also believe that we should respect men. This is what the Bible says. The Bible enjoins us to respect our husbands. And you see, the Bible also enjoins the men for you to love us. So it is vice versa. If you don't love me, certainly you don't expect that kind of respect from me. And that is what also the men are missing. Once you pick a woman is your sister, your brother, your wife, your sister, your auntie, your mother, you have to respect them. You have to love them. And it is very reciprocal. My daddy taught me about the law of reciprocity. He said, you have to, if you want somebody to do something for you, you have to do same for the person.
You know, legally, there are certain provisions that go against women. And I will give you a few examples. Some of the banks in Ghana, as soon as a woman is employed, they give you a certain period of time that you are not supposed to get pregnant. And once you get pregnant, it means you will forfeit your employment opportunity. Even with state organizations.
That is a bit harsh.
The Ghana National Fire Service, not too long ago, fired some of their female employees because they got pregnant.
Yeah, because maybe, I mean, I'm not being being brief or defending them, but it is the sort of work. If maybe you go into the military, the police, that is the security, the forces. I mean, you need to also know that if this is the rule, I don't think it's a discrimination.
Should we change the rules?
Yes, maybe we have to look at the rules and change it, adjust it a bit. Adjust it, maybe say that in 6 months, because even in church, when you go through counseling and you marry, they tell you that take 1 year to enjoy yourself before you get pregnant. Know each other.
But if pregnancy happens,
that
it's
one,
not a crime.
It's not a crime, but I mean, every institution has a rule. And as you go in there, you should know what they have. But I think it has to be changed.
Nana, let's talk about the president's participation in that conversation.
Okay.
Generally, some women appear not too happy with some of the things the president said. The president says Ghanaian women have not been that dynamic. It isn't the lack of opportunities for them. They just haven't availed themselves so much for those opportunities.
I have what he said. When I heard it, for the man that I know, I've known ever since I was a little girl. When I heard everybody, I've been off social media, TV, and I was wondering whether he actually meant that he didn't respect women, because I've known the president ever since I was a child, and it was a bit. So I went to look at it, and this is a rough paper. So I wrote down what he said. He said we are not seeing enough dynamism and activism on the part of those who are seeking, and I'm talking about dynamism where it matters, electing people to parliament, controlling political parties. We are talking about decisions, not wishes and hopes. We are talking about decisions that are going to make the difference. I don't think in here And even at the end of it all, he said that how is this going to be open? The sentiment should be a lot by the people. Systems have to be shaped, and these women, the women are instruments of society's decision making. If somebody says that women are instruments of society's decision making, he hasn't disrespected you. I said before that somebody has a bird's eye view of what is going on. What I see here, as I read it, I looked at it critically. You see, nobody should take me wrong. I'm a Christian. I speak the truth. I'm not doing politics. I'm saying what I'm seeing here, and I'm saying it. He is talking about dynamism. He's talking about women activating the system. It's possible he's looking at people like Winnie Madikizela Mandela, their types, Aung San Suu Kyi. He's looking at people like Yaa Jantuah. He's talking like people like Susanna Lassan, who stood with Kwame Nkrumah. He's talking like Mrs. Lucy Enin, who went to prison in '66 after the coup, who stood with Kwame Nkrumah to fight. He's looking at that kind of activism. He said, we are talking about decisions, not wishes. I am in decisions and wishes, in wishes and hopes. I wish I am that is my wish and my hope, that I will be the General Secretary of the Convention's People's Party. That is what he's talking about. He's not. So I should be able to go out of this wish and hope to activate what I am.
I can tell you, at the recent NDC Congress, a woman, Betty Moldidrisu, put herself out to be elected as chairperson. She was ignored by the delegates.
That one I can't say.
Yes, we're not doing the politics. Yeah. It's the issue we're looking at.
So I'm saying
when
that
you say women are not dynamic enough, women put themselves out there and the men reject them.
So are you saying it's the fault of the men?
I don't know.
The delegates are both men and women, no?
But Muslim men.
No, but it's both men and women.
Yes, but Muslim men. And
no, so
the majority,
the men, this thing recited them.
I don't know, Nana Yaa, but that's the evidence we have.
You see, but that is
women haven't been given the chance.
You see, that is political activism. There are other forms of activism that we can use. Social activism. My biggest issue and problem that I have is prostitution, prostitutes. We always don't want to have anything to do with them, but when I think of them, I cry. Because you see, I go around these joints that they are, and I find out how their life is like. And sometimes the stories that you hear is gruesome. I
have a whole documentary on prostitution in Accra. Yes. It was terrible, the stories I heard.
It's gruesome.
And for the first time, I took a second look at the way I used to view prostitutes. I have decided since then that I will not pass judgment on anybody.
Yes, but I'm saying that these are women, and we haven't activated the system for their protection. I want to activate that. It is my dream that someday, when I say they say I'm a Christian, I shouldn't say it. Someday, this trade that has been there for long will be legalized in this country. When I talk about legalization, what do I mean? I mean that there will be brothels for them for protection. And soliciting will become illegal. That once you are found on the street, you are arrested. Because, Abdul, these girls are dying. Somebody told me, a woman who sits with them, cooks around them, said that, Madam, omo kwa omo ma. And nobody is counting them. Nobody knows where they are. He said one day a man came to pick a woman. I'll be very blunt here. A man came to pick a woman, and at around 1 a.m. dumped this girl. And when the girl came, her story was that she slept with 7 men in a house. Who is protecting these ones? And this is the social activism. You see, the political activism is there where you want to stand for office like I want to do. It has always been my dream. But what about the social activism? The social activism to make change. The social activism to say that this one, we are coming together, we are standing on the front, we are making sure that, Mr. President, you are going to do some law. Activate Parliament. Send the paper to Parliament and say that this has to be done.
That Parliament is made up of Muslim men, and so women issues get there and probably will get ignored. The numbers count. The number of women in Parliament has dwindled since 1992.
You see, let me tell you something. When that woman was my heroine, and she's one person that I always wanted to meet before she died. Winnie Madikizela Mandela was in the midst of hostility. And I always say that if Winnie wasn't the wife of Nelson Mandela, it's possible Nelson Mandela would have rotten in jail. She challenged the status quo. And she was able to activate the system with a lot of activism to get apartheid to be erased. That woman went everywhere. The men were all in jail. Let's assume that Winnie didn't get up. Let's assume that Winnie did not get up. What would have happened? They were all locked up. Oliver Tambo, all of them were in jail. Walter Sisulu was somewhere. They were all out. But Winnie Madikizela Mandela stood up, activated the system. In spite of all the excesses that they said she engaged in, she made a difference. And that is the activism that we have to look at. Political activism on the ground, social activism, where we look after our own instead of condemning them. As I'm talking about prostitutes, for me, it is a big thing. Single parents, I am one. You should be able to activate the system to make sure that single parents are catered for by the system. Because you see, when you see the children by the roadside, 90% of those children by the roadside are children of single mothers. And what is the system? What is the social system, the social foundation doing for these women?
So what kind of activism are you talking about here? I mean, you say you are not talking about political activism.
Both political and social.
And
even economic, to say that women, like I'm talking about single parents who are working in corporate world, should get lesser taxes than the men, the married women.
So what's your verdict? That what? The president was right that Ghanaian women have not been dynamic enough.
He expects, you see, I believe he expects some kind of push where we'll even challenge him. Do you get me? Because you see, he has a bird's eye view of everything. That is how I see it. That if an elderly person tells you that you are not dressed properly, or if your husband tells you that, my dear, I think you should be more involved in the life of the children, you shouldn't fault him. I think that it is time for us to look at what he said and look at areas where he's saying that we haven't done well.
So the president has appointed more than 110 ministers, 116 or so of them right now.
Yeah.
Not up to half of that number is made up of women. Because
the constitution allows you to take a certain number of people to be in your cabinet. And how many people, women too, have put ourselves up? I told you about the systemic stereotypes. If you put yourself up and people, when I was in PURC, I used to get people telling me that, Nana Yaa, you're a woman. Why all this? Because I stopped going to social media because of all the insults I was seeing there. And I was just doing my work. It's not even me. The tariffs are done from somewhere and I'm told to defend it. There are times issues come up and I'm told to defend it. I don't even know what the issues are. But all I say is the Holy Spirit helped me to deal with this situation. It's a difficult one. So if the president is saying this about us, I don't think we should be angry. I think that we should put a women's caucus together, those in leadership, and go and see him and ask them, Mr. President, we beg you, which areas do you think that we haven't done well, so that you help us to do well? And we also put to him the systemic challenges that we face.
Are you willing to push such an agenda?
Yes, I am willing to push that agenda, so that if the women are happy or they are able for us to go and do that, so that we ourselves, we see. You said something, that the men are saying that we are doing it, but we are not doing it the way that will bring results. This wasn't said by the president. This was said by a group of women, a group of men who are not even in this country, who are worldwide, and I think we've gathered this forum worldwide. So the issue is that he has said this. We are women, we are mothers, we are daughters. Let's go to him. It is when he is not able to tell us where we have gone wrong, that is where we can start saying that he said something wrong. But as it stands, me, Nana Yaa Jantuah, I put myself in wishes and hopes. Because even, this is it. I put myself in wish. I want to be the first female general secretary of the Conventions People's Party. But it is a wish and hope. I haven't been able to activate it.
Why? Because you're a woman?
No, because I tell you that systemic stereotypes.
So systemic stereotypes. The stereotypes are because you're a woman.
Yeah, because I'm a woman.
And so you're just wishing. So you're not dynamic enough, Nana Yaa. If you were dynamic enough...
This is what I'm saying. So I'm saying that I put myself in his second statement.
So I'm speaking to you personally now.
Yes.
You're not dynamic.
Yes, I'm not. I will accept it. I should have been right now in the CPP. That is my father's party. My daddy's wish is for me to join my brother. It is my daddy's wish. He always speaks to me about it. The people in the CPP always...
You've allowed society to dictate to you.
Yes.
And you cannot blame society for that. Because society has its wishes.
That is it.
You have your wishes.
That is
but
it.
You allow society's wishes.
What I am. So that is exactly what the president is saying. You've answered the question for him. We have allowed the systemic stereotypes to get in the way. As it is my wish and hope and my daddy's dream to get into the CPP. That is my daddy's party. My name is Jantuah. People have attributed all manner of parties to me. Today, I am CPP. I am Jantuah's daughter. Do you get me? I'm Kwame Jantuah's sister. And I am saying that my family has always been in Nkrumah East, the one who had an indelible legacy for us to rebrand on. But it has always been a wish and a hope. Always hiding under the fact that I was a public servant. And now I have been 2 years non-public servant. I'm still wishing and hoping.
Now that we are almost out of time, yes. I am looking for that one opportunity to speak to you about events that led to your leaving the PURC. I hope you give me that opportunity someday. So we talk about why you left the PURC.
I told you that I worked 27 years and I had to resign. I did public service.
Okay, so I don't mean to discuss that now.
No, we are not discussing it.
There are always two answers to every question. You can have a very good reason and then the real reason. So there are two reasons. You've given me a very good reason. Okay, so but what was the real reason?
So
that's what I would like to find.
Today.
Not today.
So another time.
Are you promising my viewers that we'll have that?
Yes, another time when it's appropriate.
But I want us to talk about. We have just about 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
Let's talk about tariffs.
Wow.
There has been a reduction in the tariff regime.
Yeah.
You, at some point in time, were against any reduction. I remember.
No, we've never been against.
Really? No. On this platform, people were saying you don't have to increase, and you were here and you justified.
You see, you see, tariffs are very contingent. They are not categorical. They are contingent because they depend on certain parameters, and depending on where the parameters go, it can go up, it can go down, it can stay where it is. None of these three is wrong, but you have to look at where you are, where your parameters are going to. Because if it is categorical, then it means that it is fixed. There are no parameters to it. You stand at one place. But once it is contingent, it means it is dependent. And once it is dependent, it means that the parameters can change. And as long as the parameters don't stay as it is, you have to look at it and relate it to the tariff and make sure that the utilities have the requisite revenue requirements to be able to bring the service that they need to bring it. That is all we were saying at the time. And we at the time, PURC decreased tariffs. But you see, you cannot stay within a certain static mode forever. Because then you are going to see a situation where you are seeing load shedding. You are seeing things breaking down because the utilities need money. The wires business especially, and that is the transmission and the distribution, needs a lot of money because of the way it grinds. It wheels. It is always tired and you need to change. You need to refurbish. It is not the fuels business where the fuel is standing and that you have to just use it to generate the electricity. The wires business especially needs a lot of money. So if the revenue requirement is not commensurate to the tariff as in the structure, then it means that there's a problem. And for me, it is better to have a certain tariff that is commensurate to the revenue requirement that will allow the utilities to do what they have to do in a very prudent manner.
Okay, Isa Husseini says she's confusing you with English. All right, so I don't know what that means. I'm not confused at all, Isa. So, but that was a lot of English anyway. Before we go, so PDS has taken over ECG.
I don't know much about PDS, but you go on.
No, that's what I want to find out from you. Whether, since you don't know much, then I can't proceed with the question.
Yes,
because my question was actually going to be about what the prospects are in terms of all the complaints we used to have about ECG, and some of those complaints we brought to you directly, which you parried off to the ECG sometimes.
Yeah, but that is where the law says that they are the people who have to resolve your complaints, and that's what the law says. But what I'm saying is that I believe they will do a good work. If they wouldn't do a good work, they wouldn't be brought on board. I don't know about PDS for now. All I know is I need electricity in my home.
So again, let me return to the first question by the first. Are you happy with what you are paying, electricity-wise?
Me, I've always paid.
I know, but when you go to pay...
It is not my pay. I want the power. So if what I'm paying is not bringing me what I want, that every time maybe my light is off, nobody is saying what it is, and there's some challenges, I want to pay what will bring electricity, because one thing that I always get up and pray against is the fact that we don't have to go back into load shedding.
Nana Yaa Jantuah, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been wonderful having you speak for the first time in almost 2 years.
Yes.
And you just announced that you're going into politics.
That is the wish and the hope.
But if you're not dynamic,
I'll try to be dynamic.
You can't achieve that.
Yes, if I'm not,
okay.
So I have to pray about it and be dynamic.
And be dynamic. So Nana Yaa, thank you very much. We've been speaking with Nana Yaa Jantuah, who is a former director of public affairs at the PURC. We've been speaking to her about a number of issues, but most especially concerning women in corporate world and how someone like her managed to survive a very unfriendly terrain, so to speak. Nana Yaa, thank you very much for coming. We are grateful for your time. We're grateful also for your time. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll bring you another edition of the show. Have a very good night. Bye-bye. This is MOOMEN Tonight. Welcome. Many thanks for joining us. We bring you the real stories.
Abdallah, have you put pepper in the tea?
My environment alone will tell you that I'm rich.
I've chosen to be in one of the very shallow pits. They also do have miscreants, but it doesn't mean that all of them are criminals.
We do not have a good geodatabase of our mineral resources.
This is a time for us to share the oil money.
So terrorism is not going to be accepted on this continent.
If they see them coming here and going back there, they'll be killed.
But God willing, I'll be back alive.
We are just about leaving on the night patrol with the AU forces here in Somalia.
The real issues, the real talk.
We are working together for the development of Ghana.
It means that we have separation of powers.
Already we're talking about moving from what? A deficit of some 9% to 6.5%.
The critical challenge that faces every leader in the world today is the issue of creating jobs.
We will put at least 1 million people to work.
Ghana, after 60 years, has a public structure that is not responsive.
Mr. President, I thought this was your main issue why you came here.
Join me, MOOMEN.